Everyone's heard the adage,
you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
and if you've read manhwa or manga before, then you are more than familiar with the amount of edge there is out there when it comes to this trope. Like the warrior returns, where the isekai hero ends up turning into an apocalyptic nightmare on normal Earth when he returns. Or like the boxer, where the protagonist Yu is pushed further and further to extremes until he becomes a human weapon, unable to distinguish wrong from right. Even manga like Helic, where the chosen hero betrays humanity and enters the tournament to become the Demon King. Or even more popular series like Kumo Desuga or So I'm a Spider, So What, where the main character is isekai'd into the body of a little spider monster in a stereotypical fantasy setting. Or the edgiest of them all, the hero turning into the villain trope has such fun titles that there are so many to explore. So here are 5 manga and manhwa that follow that trope. Hopefully you haven't read all of them. The first one is Terror Man. Terror Man is a classic title I read back in high school, made by the one and only YLab. If you don't know anything about YLab, they're a manhwa production studio that was founded by Inwon Yoon in 2010. It features a lot of super popular series, one of which is Terror Man. The YLab universe is a bit complicated, and I'll do a separate video breaking down the universes because there's a lot of character overlap, or just have multiple versions of themselves scattered throughout the universes. I'm looking at you, Young-ha. YLab has 3 universes to separate their canon into: the Red String universe, the Blue String universe, and the Super String universe. The Red String universe features primarily romance stories like Prince of Prince. The Blue String universe focuses mainly on delinquent and more boyish stories, such as Hanman Gym, Study Group, and Get Schooled, which is a wild story about adults beating up bullies who are minors, of course. You actually may have recently heard of this, even if you don't read webtoons or manga or manhwa, because Get Schooled, or True Education, and was subsequently cancelled for having one of its protagonists drop the N-bomb. Anyways, don't read that one, not that I even think you can anymore, but definitely check out Hanlim Gym, Study Group, and its other series. The Super String universe is basically a big ol' yes and on the 2 other universes, and expands off of them by including the normal characters from other series, along with all sorts of new characters with new powers, magic, and supernatural elements. These are stories like Jungle Juice, Reawakened Man, and Terror Man. Terror Man follows the story of a young student named Min Jung-woo. Jung-woo is a seemingly normal student, except for the fact that, of course, he's not. He has a very unique ability, similar to a spider sense, but even more precise. He can see misfortune as an odd discoloration of sorts. Whenever a decision or occurrence will cause misfortune, the area will slowly be covered by a strange purple fog. Our protagonist calls this his eyes of misfortune. One day, while out at the mall, he notices the entire building is covered in that same purple fog. He notices a crack in the ceiling above and immediately informs security and asks them to start evacuating people. They obviously don't believe some random kid, especially when the building is held up without issue for as long as it has. While trying to think of what to do, he has a flashback to the time when he first awakened his power. The same day his mom died. They had gotten into an accident and Jung-woo's mom is pinned under the wreckage. She warns him to run away and is covered in a strange purple fog. Startled, he jumps back and immediately a boulder slams onto the car. Back to the present, the current Jung-woo is frustrated by his own inability to do anything about the situation in the department store, and he starts to head home. But Lilia, his housekeeper and nanny, convinces him to stay and to try to help the situation. Lilia is a housekeeper and a nanny that was hired by Jung-woo's father to take care of him in his absence. Apparently, neither of them will speak about what she did before this job, but regardless, she offers to help Jung-woo. She introduces him to an old friend of hers, and he brought the firepower. And by that, I mean guns. A lot of guns. Just as Jung-woo is realizing what's in front of him, part of the ceiling breaks and collapses onto a car behind him. They have 10 minutes until the store completely collapses. Then they take the next natural step that anyone would do in this scenario. Wear furry heads. Well, turns out the guns are just BB guns anyways. So, on another one, these guys additionally decide to call in a bomb threat to the department store to also give the employees a heads up. While Jung-woo and Lilia are arguing about how to call in the threat, Lilia's friend calls it in and tells the department store to give him a bunch of money too, just so that it's convincing. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly get a reaction. Then they go into plan B and rush the building. But the furhead is a little inconvenient and Lilia hands Jung-woo a gas mask instead. Jung-woo and Lilia start making a flashy display with some smoke bombs, but it isn't quite enough. However, as soon as an old lady is about to get hurt by someone panicking, Jung-woo socks him in the face. This sets off everyone as they all run away screaming terrorists. They are soon surrounded by the police and one of the onlookers calls them out on having BB guns, but then Lilia fires her weapon, which has actual bullets. Sure enough, while they're at a standoff with the police, the 10 minutes is up and the building collapses behind them. The gang takes this chance to run away, but in the middle of the purple fog is one of his classmates who is also at the store. Jung-woo without hesitation rushes in and manages to push her out of the way of the falling debris and into a non-purple area. The crew then rushes away and escapes. The next day, Jung-woo still can't believe what he did, and on his way home he gets stuck at a bridge where a collision seems to have blocked the road. One of the cars has an injured mother and her child, and it begins to fall off of the bridge, and once again, Jung-woo rushes in without hesitation. He tries to pull the car, and the other onlookers, inspired by his actions, help him out, and they manage to rescue the two before the car falls off the edge. Jung-woo is praised for his quick thinking, however, the moment doesn't last long, as the entire bridge is now covered in purple fog. Jung-woo quickly calls Lilia and then tells her to get over here, and she responds that she is already over there as a drone gently flies down. She leads Jung-woo down the side of the bridge where there are a bunch of plastics strapped to its underside. Jung-woo is now faced with a deliberate choice, a choice about something more than just simple coincidence. He can either run away and save himself or deliberately choose to stay and try and save people. Naturally, Jung-woo decides to stay. He runs in and the bridge explodes. Jung-woo, however, is safe as he found the one pocket of safety amidst that explosion. He manages to safely get away, but someone manages to get Bong-chun, Lilia's friend and the weapons dealer from before. He's also the one that controls the drones. The one who gets him is the real terrorist, the one who actually set up the explosive. It was one of the onlookers who helped him save the mother and child from before. He dodges the knife thrust and goes for the gun on the ground, but it's just bait, and Mr. Baseball Cap terrorist shoots his leg. The terrorist feels like something is off and starts to recognize Jung-woo, but Jung-woo resists, and the terrorist responds in kind by breaking his arm and beating the ever-loving shit out of him. However, right in the nick of time, Lilia appears. She kicks the crap out of the guy and saves Jung-woo and Bong-chun. As the guy is struggling on the ground, Jung-woo spots a familiar tattoo, a tattoo shared by a woman who attended her mom's funeral. Jung-woo begins to realize that his mom's death may not have just been an accident. He demands an answer from the terrorist, and he seems to know something about that incident 11 years ago. However, Jung-woo has to flee before he can find out more. He goes home and makes his resolve to learn about his mother's death and whatever group of people caused it. However, the criminal has now begun to work with the police, and the police use him as bait to try and lure Jung-woo out. Lilia goes after them, and Bong-chun and Jung-woo are discovered by a reporter who is also at the department store. After explaining and convincing her of their situation, Jung-woo and the reporter go to confront the killer. Jung-woo, however, feels instinctual fear rise up as he is afraid of getting his arm broken again. But when he sees blood dripping down from a few floors up, he tells the woman to get out of here. He goes after the terrorist, but he hasn't been training for long, so he ends up getting a knife stuck in his hand. But he's persistent and flings dirt in the guy's eyes, rips the knife out, and runs into the building. A moment later, he appears a few floors up with the latest gas mask Bong-chun made for him. The gas mask has a special cartridge that has a drug that enhances his concentration. When he vapes it, it will enhance the power of his eyes of misfortune. Come back to the present, and he punches the terrorist right in the mouth. Now he can see the dangerous attacks even before they occur. With this newfound vision, he easily dodges all of the terrorist moves and counterattacks. As the terrorist goes to stab Jung-woo, he rushes in and uses the function of his new gloves, a powerful electric shock. As the police escort Lilia and see Jung-woo, he escapes. The drug came at a cost, however, and he starts bleeding profusely. However, as he is recovering, he sees a purple blaze, an illusion of a fire about to break out. Bong-chun tries to warn Jung-woo that he's going to overdose, but Jung-woo pushes himself, saying, "I can't lose my family because because of my incompetence anymore. Jung-woo breathes in, and a moment later, fire extinguishers are thrown out, and Jung-woo starts taking out the police one by one using the smoke as cover. However, when the chief gets on the scene, it only takes one punch to send Jung-woo flying and knock him out cold. However, as the chief is talking them down and assuring them of their safety, he is sniped. The sniper kills the chief and his subordinates, and Lilia and Jung-woo are confronted by the terrorist, who blows up the building behind them and ends up being killed by some of the debris that flies off of it. A few days later, Jung-woo goes to the grave of these officers and pays his respects. The reporter there confronts him and asks if he recorded the conversation he had with the terrorist. Jung-woo said the thing broke and officially makes his resolve. The truth is that we were the ones committing the terror attacks. The truth is that the police officers lying here today died trying to capture us in the process. The story I told you at my house was nothing more than a lie to escape the situation. Nothing more to it. I will continue these terror attacks in the future as well. So please, do whatever you want. And thus, we witness the hero become the villain in order to save people. This is the birth of Terror Man. Terror Man has such a unique art style, mixing this gray, black, and white art style with pops of color and flashes of pigment. The general bluish gray tone really makes it feel like you are seeing the world through the same eyes of misfortune as Jung-woo. It's 209 chapters, and I would really recommend checking it out. The next one is called Legend of Asura, Venom Dragon. Jin Jagang is our protagonist and heir to the mighty medicine sect. In the middle of the night, wakes up to his mother foaming at the mouth. A centipede rushes up his chest and bites him. Jin does the most protagonist thing you could do and bites the centipede back. Jin passes out on the floor, and his grandfather rushes in to save him and is confronted by the elder of the poison sect, Mangryo. Jin, who had been pretending to be unconscious, stabs Mangryo's foot with the centipede shell. Mangryo isn't too happy about that and goes to finish him off, but Jin's grandfather takes the blow and helps him escape. Mangryo, having been left with the poison in his leg, is forced to cut it off in order to spare his life. And while Jin and his grandfather manage to get away, his grandfather does not make it through the night, and Jin is eventually found and caught. Mangryo is merciless and tortures the poor kid by experimenting on him with many cruel poisons and venoms. For who knows how long, Jin is subject to the most gruesome experiment after gruesome experiment. During one of these experiments, after pushing Jin a little too far, Mangryo is forced to spend some of his own ki to revive his subject. Exhausted and needing to recover, Mangryo momentarily leaves Jin unattended. This gives Jin a chance. Mangryo comes back to find a trap and his room in disarray. He finds that a few traps have been cleverly laid out by Jin. However, despite Mangryo's vigilance, through some twisted version of Home Alone style traps, Jin poisons Mangryo and comes out from where he had been hiding the entire time. A box full of venomous, hungry snakes. He had just been silently enduring the snake bites and waiting this whole time. Mangryo is left on the floor to die as Jin escapes into the night. Legend of Asura is a solid and fun revenge story set in the classic wuxia setting. And if you're into wuxia, then you'll probably like this. Happiness is a wonderfully dark story with an equally magical art style. The premise is simple, but its real effectiveness lies in the characters and their development. The story follows Makoto Okazaki, a normal high school student who, while walking home one day, is ambushed and bitten by a vampire. For some reason, while giving him the good suck.
Now you have to get his penis erect. So what you're going to do is just suck his dick. That's like you said you were going to do.
The vampire, Nora, asks if this is how he wants to die, and if he wishes to become like her. On the brink of death, Makoto of course responds that he doesn't want to die, and the vampire, Nora, smiles and leaves Makoto in the street, barely alive. He passes out, and when he comes to, you guessed it, he becomes a vampire. It's not long before his new vampire powers make him accidentally stand up to his bully and want to lick the blood off of his bloody nose. He resists and manages to get away, and from then on, his bully no longer picks on him. The rest of the story is Makoto's exploration of his newfound vampirism and the consequences therein. Like I said, the premise is fairly simple, but the art style is a wonder to look at, and the real meat of the story that you can bite into, pun intended, is the character development of the characters that get wrapped up in Okazaki's mess. Reaper Drifting in the Moon is a classic revenge story set in a wuxia setting, ancient Chinese martial arts action for those of you who don't know what it is, and is made by Rythm Studios, the makers of such titles as Solo Leveling, Omniscient Reader, and The World After the Fall. The premise is fairly simple, but where it really shines is in the artwork, its hook, its pacing, and its exploration of the life after revenge as well. The story starts with 14-year-old Pure Wool, an orphan that wanders from place to place looking for his next meal and his next lodging. One day, after meeting a mysterious figure, a mysterious man in the middle of the street, he is kidnapped and imprisoned underground. Perhaps it's fortunate, or perhaps it's more unfortunate, nothing happens. For who knows how long, how many minutes, hours, and days, Pure Wool is trapped, unable to move and unable to see in the pitch black, and slowly starving to death. As hatred towards his kidnapper festers in his heart and starvation begins to kick in, his fingers twitch a little. His senses slowly start to come back to him, and his breathing becomes easier. The smell of the room starts to drift back to him, and the cold of the stone floor begins to set in his skin. A moment later, he hears water, and he forces his barely free body to crawl towards the sound in order to drink and survive. Pure Wool is kept in this underground chamber and occasionally given food through a door on the other end of the chamber. One day, while trapped, a white snake is released into the chambers and it bites Pure Wool. He immediately feels the poison course through his veins and yells in pain. By some miracle, his body is able to detoxify the poison and he is able to survive. Thanks to that, he feels like his body underwent some kind of change, and eventually the door to his chamber opens and he walks through a corridor with many similar chambers and many similarly aged orphans, none of whom were lucky enough to survive like him. As he moves to the next block, he finds survivors, a bunch of other orphans from many blocks with similar chambers. The children slowly make their way to the end of these blocks of chambers and end up coming across a manor-like palace underground. The children scatter and groups are eventually formed, as cliques naturally do. However, our protagonist, in true edgy main character fashion, is the only one to choose not to join a group. Not long after, from the ceiling, a basket of food is lowered so that the children must divide it amongst themselves. Pure Wool eventually figures out that this whole thing is a test to see which of the kids are useful. For what purpose? Who knows? And slowly but surely, the first challenge that comes their way is the reduction of food. The basket that is lowered slowly receives less and less food each passing day. Slowly the kids begin to die off, first in petty scuffles, then in all-out war. It's not long before all of the groups are engaged in vehement battles to the death. Pure Wool in the meantime has stuck to the far back chambers that they come from and had continued to eat the moss and drink the water there so as to not be involved in the conflict he saw coming a mile away. Eventually, after many casualties, a group of men come from the hole in the ceiling above and then begin to mercilessly beat the shit out of every single one of the remaining children. One of the children speaks up and is immediately silenced through decapitation. It's then that we begin to understand the true nature of this whole situation and why the children have been forced to fight against each other and kill each other. Confidential, only for the captain of the Blood Phantom organization. We request an assassination. Length 7 years. Reward 500,000 gold nyang. Do not leave any trace of the Blood Phantom organization. Reincarnation of a veteran soldier is hands down my favorite art style of this video and is by far one of the most unique I have ever seen, period. It's a twist on the classic isekai trope, and if you like stuff like tsukimichi, moonlit fantasy, then this is perfect for you. Our main character is Park Byung-jung, or Sergeant Park. He is on duty in the Korean military as part of his mandatory service, but is a mere 3 days away from retiring. His uptight platoon leader makes him do a demonstration of the obstacle course for his subordinates despite him being almost discharged. He ends up doing it, but as he starts, he immediately trips, eats shit, and dies. Sergeant Park suddenly wakes up and is greeted by the goddess of another world, Parlia. Naturally, he can't believe it. I mean, the goddess is named after a cigarette after all. Not to mention, he was only 3 days away from being discharged. He complains to Parlia, saying she should have let him rest and he doesn't want to become some kind of hero in another world. Parlia is pissed off, and because of this, she says instead of being a blessed warrior, she is going to send him down without a single skill. Now perhaps this is a testament to Park Byung-jung's personality, but in outrage, he charges Parlia, the goddess. However, her angels restrain the sergeant and Parlia sends him down to her world. He beseeches Parlia for mercy, and Parlia snobbily grants him a shovel and military supplies, telling him to think of it as military service. And thus begins Sergeant Park's journey as he rebels against Parlia and her creations while being branded as a demon lord. My favorite part about this manhwa has got to be all of the weird abilities that it has throughout. It's not exactly like The Player, where in that manhwa the abilities are super specific and intricately detailed, but rather many of them have general effects and general power boosts. Between that, the art style and the dynamic personalities that each of the characters bring to the table is an amazing read. Not to mention, Sergeant Park is a great and charismatic main character. Watching the hero become the villain is a trope as old as time. After all, everyone is the hero of their own story.
ヒーローは守るものが多いんだよ。だから負けないよ